All right. Hey guys. So this is a new thing that I'm trying out. Basically, I'm thinking of making a bunch of short YouTube videos where I talk about stuff I've been thinking about related to the development of Manifold Garden. I've been keeping a pretty open development process for the last several years, and I share a lot of my thoughts on Twitter and Twitch, but Twitter is sort of too short, 140 characters, so a lot of the stuff doesn't really come across right. And Twitch is great, but a lot of times I'm just kind of thinking out loud, so I'm not super articulate. I mean, I'm thinking out loud right now, but I just finished a stream like about an hour ago, so I at least was talking about stuff there. So, I think of doing these like one or two a week up until we ship. Another motivation for this is after I stream, I'll usually make an archive of it and send it up and upload it to YouTube. But I know not everybody wants to watch like a 2 hour long video where half the time I'm just staring at the computer trying to fix bugs. Anyway, today I saw this. The thing I want to talk about today is this problem that I've kind of had for a long time, which is the game being compared to Antichamber a lot. And I got a lot of those comparisons early on, and it did really bother me. But it's only kind of until recently that I've gotten to understand sort of my own mentality better and that issue. And the sort of this came up today because basically there was this Reddit thread, and I don't really use Reddit, but somebody friend's game was included in this thread, and they posted on Twitter, and I was like, hey, I wonder if Manifold Garden was mentioned. So it was the thread is posts, what's a relatively unknown title that you've been following the development on, and why does it excite you? This guy just discovered RimWorld, which I would not consider to be a relatively unknown game. Anyway, so Manifold Garden was found here, and so first of all, I'm super excited to see this, and Obi Twice, huge thanks for posting about the game. Really glad to hear that you're excited. And then of course, the first comment is like, this looks a lot like Antichamber. Which is an amazing puzzle game. Check it out if you haven't. And this, and then right away, it's like, yeah, it looks very much like a love letter to Antichamber with pastel colors and much wider areas. And to be fair, this is a website that I put up for Manifold Garden about 2 years ago. Back in 2015, and it was kind of at the time when I had changed the name of the game from Relativity to Manifold Garden, and I just needed a web presence. So I didn't have, I had like the gameplay was there mechanically, but the visuals weren't quite there, and I didn't want to put anything that looked really awful. So, and yeah, from this website, I mean, the trailer just is just kind of these like slow panning shots that don't show any gameplay. The gameplay GIFs just show you falling through the world infinitely, and the screenshots, they're okay, but it's sort of before. I mean, this one's quite good, but a lot of this is before we started exploring kind of the darker shadows and the bloom. So, and yeah, it's these are this is a relatively recent post, just from 2 days ago, but they're looking at stuff from 2 years ago, and this website, I think they're right. Like, it does just look kind of like Antichamber, but with pastel colors and bigger maps. And so, anyway, this is like, I think 2 years ago when I heard comparisons with Antichamber, it really bothered me. And I mean, it still does, but I think and a lot of people say like, oh no, don't worry about it. It doesn't look like Antichamber, or they'll say people will always compare A to B, but I think the important thing here is not so much dismissing people's feedback, because the truth is almost every time the game is mentioned, people compare it to Antichamber. But I think that's often when they don't show the gameplay. And so as a it's what this is for me is not so much like a setback, but more as like I think it's important to just look at this as a data point, you know, and what this is telling me is not that, because the game is not a love letter to Antichamber. If anything, it's like a love letter to the manga Blame or Frank Lloyd Wright. I think it has much more similarities with game like Starseed Program and Naissance, but what this is telling me is that the presentation of the game has problems. And so this is something for me to think about as I move, you know, as we sort of get ready to ship and we start our really the main campaign, right? Which is, you know, there's going to be a gameplay trailer, but okay, what do I need to show here on the site to really make the game stand out? And so, you know, I talked about this a bit on this stream. So if you look at Antichamber screenshots, like a lot of people will tell me that, oh, maybe you can add like curves or something. But I think there's this game Imprestia that looks a lot like Antichamber, and they're, you know, they have curves everywhere. I don't think there are any 90-degree angles in the game, or well, there are some here, but yeah, it's mostly curves, and I think that still has that looks very much like Antichamber, and I think it's like the primary colors is like mostly white base, so it's not so much, you know, which when I first found this, it was a relief because a lot of people suggested adding curves as a way to differentiate it, and I think this shows that curves alone is not the solution. And there's a little test I like to do, which is this like a squint test. You know, you kind of step back a bit and just sort of squint, and do they look very different or do they look the same? And to me, these sort of all kind of blur together to be very similar. But some of the newer Manifold Garden visuals, let's see, you know, we've added kind of a much darker tone overall, stronger shadows, a lot bigger contrast between shadows and light, and of course we've added bloom. So I think, like, you know, we still have the edges here, we still have the lack of textures, but you know, I think the density, especially like something here, plus the bloom, this really starts to make it different. Like when I see this, and I, you know, when I do the squint test on this, it does not feel like this as much. In fact, I don't think it feels like this at all. Like when I squint with these Antichamber screenshots and when I squint at this, you know, it's a very, very different vibe. And so the key would be, you know, showcasing these newer screenshots that really highlight the differences visually. And you know, these are all like work in progress screenshots that I took during development, so they're not the best looking ones. But yeah, like showcasing the visuals of the game that really highlight the differences, and then getting gameplay. And I think once people start seeing gameplay, they will they'll be able to better differentiate the game, because right now it's like they just don't have a lot to work with. So all right, I'm kind of already going on for too long, but basically what I wanted to say with this video is, like, you know, sometimes you see stuff like discussions about the game online, and it's not always the kind of discussion that you want to see. And I think your first instinct is to kind of become defensive or to be dismissive, and I know that that's sort of something that I've struggled with, but I think it's important to, you know, kind of treat that stuff as data. Like, okay, well, if this is what people are walking away with, what can I do to change that? And I think something that's helped a lot is also remembering that I'm still in a position where I can change. Like, it's actually kind of nice because I'm getting this data before the game has shipped. So, you know, I don't want to dismiss these issues because they're going to come up after I ship as well, or they're just going to be on the Steam store page. And I also don't want to just become like angry, because that doesn't get me anywhere, but instead like recognizing, you know, that this is a problem, and then also recognizing that I am in a position to address this problem, and then, you know, figuring out how we're going to do it. So anyway, that's it for this one. I guess if you're interested in Manifold Garden, the website is manifold.garden, and we've also got a Steam store page, but you can find all the relevant information there. Right, see you guys next time.